I think that the majority of people do not know and understand how toxic the environment is. You throw in a Cascade pod into your dishwasher, a Tide pod into your washing machine. You're getting microplastics on all your plates, your utensils, your cups, your clothes. You breathe them in, they absorb through the skin. There are multiple ways for those to get in. We want to welcome you back to our next episode of Living on Purpose. I'm Dr. Allison Brumley, naturopathic physician, and I'm here with Karen Cox, who's a certified health coach. And we're so excited to talk about this very crucial aspect of health today, and it's going to be on the endocrine or hormone disrupting chemicals that we have in the environment, how they affect our hormones, and what can we do about it. So, Karen, I'm going to have you get started on this one.
Well, I'm so excited about this conversation because it's something that's out there. We live in a really toxic world. We kind of describe it sometimes as a toxic soup that we live in, but many of us don't know what to do about it. Are we just doomed to have disease and hormone disruption? Or is there actually something we can do about it? So maybe let's start there. Let's start with the basics, like what do you actually mean by a hormone detox, or what are we actually detoxing from?
I start my conversations about this the most with a study done by the Environmental Working Group about 20 years ago. And they took blood samples out of 10 umbilical cords from babies who had just been born and tested them for toxins. And it was the first time they saw BPAs in blood that then is going to that fetus. And they found over 200 chemicals in that blood. So these days, I pretty much say you're toxic before you're born. And then every year you're living, you get bombarded by toxins. It's whether it's your food, your water, the air, lotions and body care products all have toxins in them. Toxins that disrupt the metabolism of everything. So whether you're looking at, is it a thyroid disruptor? Is it an insulin disruptor? Is it an estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone disruptor? There are just so many chemicals out there now, whether you're drinking out of plastic bottles. There you get your phthalates and your BPAs. Worse when they get hot. So all the people who do the Keurig coffee, they're in those little plastic pods that get heated up, and you're drinking forever chemicals in that.
Well, and a new recent study showed that 100% of placentas that they have studied now, 100% have plastics in them. Why are plastics endocrine disruptors?
Well, they have the phthalates and the BPAs in them that have an estrogen-like action in the body. And so when those chemicals land on our receptors, it causes the body to do something. You're making more hormone of one thing or less hormone of another. You've got transcription factors that are supposed to be making these. They make proteins that help us bind hormones, which is actually a very important thing for our body to do, which requires our liver to not be too toxic. And we have these wonderful mechanisms of detoxing every day. Our liver has 3 phases of detox, and sometimes that can be not as great depending on genetics or just the toxic burden. So I will tell my patients there is no way to avoid everything unless you're living in a bubble. You just can't. Where do you start by telling people what to avoid?
Well, I always really try to give people hope that this body is made to detox. It has a wonderful programs within it. We sweat, we pee, we poop, we breathe. We breathe. All of those are functions to get toxins out of our bodies. But what's happening is when we're not paying attention, when we're not being intentional, that we get too bogged down. And then our bodies can't work the way they're meant to work. We stop sweating. we stop paying attention to the things that help us get rid of the toxins, and we're not paying attention to how many toxins we're taking in.
I think that the majority of people do not know and understand how toxic the environment is. You throw in a Cascade pod into your dishwasher, a Tide pod into your washing machine. You're getting microplastics on all your plates, your utensils, your cups, your clothes. You breathe them in, they absorb through the skin. There are multiple ways for those to get in. In the agriculture business, you've got oftentimes, if they're just those conventionally raised beef, chicken, you're getting, hormones in that, whether it's growth hormone or they feed them the genetically modified foods. And then when we eat that, we're still having the effect of those genetically modified foods. And they've shown over time, and usually a short period of time, when they've tested GMOs in rats, within 2 generations, they're infertile on genetically modified foods, and or they grow tumors. So they aren't always cancerous tumors, but how many people have cysts and things like that, whether you're talking about ovarian cysts, liver cysts, kidney cysts. When I look at imaging reports, I see those often. Where are they coming from? In naturopathic medicine and homeopathy, genetically, we talk about people having a particular miasm. And that term is really just used in the homeopathy world. But a miasm is handed down through your ancestry, and it's all about how well you detoxify. Do you grow things? Do you get ulcerations? There's a number of different ways that you can figure out how well you detox. If you grow a lot of cysts, then your body just walls off toxins. It doesn't get rid of them, doesn't get them out of the body. It just walls them off, whether they're cysts in your skin, your ovaries. You could look at, lipomas, warts, things like that. You have a hard time detoxing. So when I think about that and the myriad of ways that we can detox, I think the number one step is to avoid the toxins in the first place. So, it's just changing one thing at a time. I will have patients say, all right, for this next year, you could start from wherever you are. We start in October here, November, make one change a month. Decide, you ran out of your Cascade pods, you're going to do a more natural dishwashing detergent. The next month, pick another one.
And that's exactly where I had to begin. I am somebody that has always been susceptible for growing things. Never have had a cancerous growth, but I've always had cysts or fibroids or different growths on my body from the very beginning, which is interesting. I was born with a growth, with a tumor. And so I really do believe that once I learned what to avoid and really tried to get that out of my home, I've changed to plastic containers, my drinkware, and those things, my products, my makeup line, my shampoos, conditioners. But then I've also had to work on getting the old out, really learning how to sweat and drink and pay attention to my liver all the time. First thing in the morning, working on cleansing out that liver. So it does make a difference.
What's the strategy you use for that, your morning routine?
So my morning routine is a warm cup of water, some grated ginger, and a squeeze of fresh organic lemon. And get that first thing in the morning. I've studied the liver, and the liver goes to bed when we do, but it wakes up about 2 or 3 in the morning and it starts to clean house. And then when you get up, if you drink and flush and hydrate that liver, it's like taking out the garbage.
So good. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Another strategy I use that everyone can do is a castor oil pack.
I'd love castor oil pack.
The best time to do a castor oil pack is at night You just rub a little castor oil on your abdomen, or you can get castor oil packs. There's some great ones that you can find. Drizzle a little castor oil on it, put it over the abdomen, and let it rest there for 45 minutes with a little heat on it is nice. It helps the castor oil penetrate. When the castor oil penetrates into the skin, it increases the blood flow. So you're increasing blood flow to the liver, you're increasing it to the gallbladder, to the stomach, the intestines. If you do the whole abdominal pack, it will make those things work better. For detoxification, the last thing you want to be is constipated and backed up. People should be having their bowels move 1 to 3 times a day. More than that's a little excessive. Less than that, you back up toxins. You can do stool testing that tests for as a marker for toxicity. And I will see that elevated in people who are a little backed up. So, keep the bowels moving, whether it's you need some magnesium citrate, you need more water, more fiber. There's a lot of different strategies. There's a lot of herbal formulas you can use for that. That is one of the most important things, is to keep those bowels moving. And I've had several people say, if I do the castor oil pack at night, my bowels will move in the morning. If I don't do it, they don't. So castor oil packs are phenomenal. I think they're easy as can be. I'll fall asleep with mine at night, and it works for me. I'm not a big tosser and turner during the night, so it just stays put. And then I wake up and I put it in a little bag over on my night table and do it again the next night. So it can be done every night, or it can be done, 2 or 3 days out of the week. And studies have shown that it's a little more effective if they're consecutive days. So you're better off doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday than a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type thing.
So what are some other telltale signs that someone has a toxic overload, that they might not be shedding the toxins the way they need to, and maybe need to do a deep dive into?
The things I see the most are fatigue. That's a big one. When people are detoxing, sometimes when they start out, they get even a little more fatigued, and that lets me know there's a heavier burden. So fatigue is really probably one of the main things to think about. Others are acne, skin breakouts. If your body can't detox well, it'll come out on the skin. And there can be some other hormonal actions on the skin based on where you break out, like the breakouts along the jawline and chin, neck, chest, back of the head, nape of the neck. Those are usually hormonal breakouts. If it's up on the cheeks, this is more with digestive health. You've got liver health here. You've got some small intestine. So, you've got the T-zone, which might be a little confusing about, well, where am I really? But if you've got anything on the forehead, it's pretty much liver, small intestine, maybe not good bile flow. And then, when you get it on the cheeks, it could be some food sensitivities, but it does have to do with digestive health a lot. So there are certain ways, to see that. Other things that I will think about are the not sleeping well. But mostly it's just that sluggish feeling. Things are not, the metabolism isn't great. And with that, I'm talking about blood sugar and insulin metabolism or thyroid metabolism. It could be any of those, but sluggishness and fatigue is really the key.
And how does the extra estrogens, when they build up in our system, how does that affect the female body?
That's one of the chemical disruptors that we have the most in the environment, are those chemicals that have an estrogenic like activity. So they're not estrogen. We call them xenoestrogens. And they can either land on an estrogen receptor, so your body thinks it's got plenty of estrogen, but you're still making more. So you can have symptoms of fibrocystic breast cysts, ovarian cysts, and weight gain are probably the biggest things when you've really got a lot of those xenoestrogens in you. Whether you're looking at others, like there's atrazine is a terrible pesticide that we get in a lot of our foods. The glyphosate from Roundup, terrible. That has maybe more neurological activity. So you get some neurodegeneration in that. The majority of my patients who have come in with seizures or tremors have glyphosate in them. So that then glyphosate is not sprayed on organic foods. So it's like as much as you can eat organic, the better. My favorite consumer guides are on that environmental working group website. It's ewg.org, and they have consumer guides for tap water, skincare products. And there are other apps now for skincare products too, but EWG's been around forever. They do a phenomenal job. They've got a list of the endocrine disruptors and where you find them, and sunscreens, and I could go on and on.
So we could link that in our show notes for today.
Yeah.
How does it affect the next generation? How is it affecting our young girls?
Well, I think we can already see that. Everyone knows that there's a rise in autism. Everyone knows there's a rise in hormonal disruption. They don't always know that it's PCOS. That stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. And these days, I assume every young woman who comes into my clinic has it until I prove otherwise. It is, and it can be mild or it can be dramatic, the differences in that syndrome. Half the women have acne, half the women don't. Half of them gain weight, can't lose weight. The other half are thin. They don't have to worry about weight. Half can have good fertility and the other half have infertility. But just about every young woman has it. And then we have the young men not making testosterone. So we already can see the damage that it's doing to our children now. That's been going on really for decades.
And so it really is important for us to have awareness around toxicity and how to get the right foods in and how to detox our body. So what are some of those good foods that help for detox?
Oh, your best foods are really your greens. We've got the cruciferous vegetables, which are your cauliflower, broccoli, cabbages, bok choy, kale. They're all under a category of cruciferous vegetables, and they have the sulforaphane in them and the diindolylmethane in them. Both of those help you metabolize estrogen a little bit better. And even some things with soy. Soy's up and down in the research. You don't know is it good? Is it bad? Where is it? We do know that in Asian countries where they do eat more things with soy, they have less breast cancer rates. And so I try and steer people to doing less modified or processed sources of soy, whether you're doing edamame or an organic soy milk. But, some of the tofus, if it's not organic, it's genetically modified. And then I'm like, duh, it's not worth it. Don't do that. But soy can bump out those xenoestrogens. So we want to get those out as much as we can. Those strategies of drinking water is very cleansing to the body, but it can't be tap water at this point. It's got chlorine in it, or it's got fluoride in it. It's got just all sorts of terrible chemicals, benzenes and phenols. And so, filtering your water, if it's a reverse osmosis or distilled, you need to put some minerals back in it or take some extra minerals because it does get stripped a little bit. Spring water is probably okay. Distilled water is actually the cleanest, where you're taking the water out of the chemicals versus the chemicals out of the water. But it loses those minerals, and we don't get enough minerals in our food supply with our depleted soils. When I was going to school up in Portland, Oregon, they were testing soil samples at that time and couldn't find selenium in the soil. So, and we need selenium for our thyroid. So selenium is very important for the conversion of thyroid hormone to its active form.
So detox is kind of a heavy topic. and it can feel a little overwhelming. So maybe we should concentrate on some simple strategies or a place to start if somebody's just first discovering the importance of having cleaner go in and helping things to go out that are toxic.
Yeah. And I'll also tell people sometimes you have to pick and choose a little bit too. If there's something, and really probably antiperspirant is one of the hardest. I'll have people come in. I've tried every type of natural deodorant, antiperspirant, and it doesn't work. So it's like, well, maybe that's the one thing you keep. We don't like the aluminum that's in it, but if you're cutting back in other areas. So I really like the person I'm talking to choose where do they want to start. Do they fill up to getting a water filter? That would be a great place to start. Or do they want to change out their body care? When I have young girls, teenage girls come in, I'm like, no more Bath and Body Works. Sorry, they've got the fragrances are terrible for your health. They balk at that. They don't want to give that up. So that could be one of the last things they give up. Maybe they get into their 20s and they decide it's not that big of a deal. So there are just a lot of things. Cleaners would be another one. If you love that lemon smell of your Mr. Clean, or you love the smell of Lysol, because clean should not have a smell. There's no smell to clean. And so all those fragrances and those chemicals in there are toxic. So my favorite thing to use is something I used a long time ago. I think they have several systems available now, but it was the first one I ever heard about, and it was Force of Nature. And it makes hypochlorous acid. It smells a little bit like bleach, but it's non-toxic to humans and pets. And when you clean with that, you really don't get much of a smell afterward. It's just clean. And then even through COVID, they were testing it on the COVID virus, and it was the 99.9%, because I think you can't say 100%. But that it would kill virus. So it is a very good cleaner, can be used on anything. I use it in my office as well as my home. And so wherever you feel like would be a good place for you to start is the place to start.
It's a really good idea. And we could maybe put some of those links also when people are looking, when you find a good brand, you want to share that
it.
and help others out. Is there anything more that you feel like would be important for our listeners to know about endocrine disruptors? Have we covered most of them or all of them?
Oh, no. We could go on a full day. We could go on a whole day. We've talked a little bit about the plastics and what's in our water. We could talk about what's in the air. We live in Utah, which is one of the most congested, poor air quality states. And there's not that much you can do about it. I will tell people, especially if you've got asthma, it can be particularly bad. And it's not helpful to walk around with a mask on. You're not going to walk around with an oxygen tank, breathing in your oxygen. But having an air filter at home can be very, very helpful. They've done some studies for kids with autism, and there's one study that showed a high correlation with people who live next to busy freeways, where there's lots of exhaust fumes, lots of benzenes, and what do they do? I don't know that anybody's really clear on what they do to affect the brain in such a way. Is it more that you've just got the toxins that disrupt the neurological system? Or does it actually change the physiology? We talk about being toxic before we're born. What does that physiology look like in, kiddos with autism? Because regardless of whether you blame it on vaccines or living next to a freeway or, attention deficit with the dyes and the colorings that they put in foods, which can have a huge effect on kids with attention deficit. There are a lot of strategies to getting those out of the body. A lot of people will use binders. I like binders. I use a lot of binders where I'm looking at Mold. I mean, let's bring up mold. Mold is everywhere. When I was doing my training up in Portland, I thought, well, of course they have mold up here. It's humid. It rains a lot. There's lots of little mossy stuff growing everywhere. And then I came back to Utah, and I've seen more people sick with mold than anything, and then we get locked up in our homes through the winter, and you're just breathing in those mold spores, and then toxins from mold are called mycotoxins. And the best way to clean those up are binders. And binders can be charcoal, bentonite clay, zeolite. There's a number of them that can help bind up those toxins, and then they're carried out through the urine or the bowels. Probably with a binder more than that, more than even the sweat. But I loved how you brought up sweating, because I think, getting in a sauna and sweating, or doing a pretty hot detox bath where you actually are sweating, are such good strategies. They're relatively easy for people to do. For people that live in communities and they have these little rec centers in the communities, I might put a sauna in it. I just found out they put saunas up at Willard Bay, which is just a nice little lake. Yeah. What is it? 30 minutes north of me, but they've got saunas there now. $30 a visit, go sauna. Better yet, get a sauna in your home. They have the little pop-up saunas that are like $1,300. I like Therasage, Momentum. There are couple really good companies that the sauna heats up just in seconds. And then you're in there 20, 30 minutes and you're drenched. And do that 2 or 3 times a week. You'd be so much healthier. People who have autoimmune diseases, they need to sauna. You just have to, you can't do it so much that it weakens you. You will sweat out some minerals. You need your electrolytes. Or you spend 20 minutes in a detox bath, and you could do that 2 or 3 nights a week. I'm going to put the recipe for that as a link too.
That's wonderful. Isn't it awesome to hear from a doctor that knows and has seen the effects of our toxic world that we live in, but also some hope. Like, our bodies are made to detox. We just need to work to give them a break from it, and then to work to clean them up. And it really does work. Like, I have great energy now, and I attribute it a lot to I have a better liver. I detox regularly, and I just really know it does make a big difference. So maybe a takeaway, what should be our takeaway for our listeners today?
Well, I would really like our listeners to decide what they can change out this month. This month, what are you going to do? Is it going to be body care? Is it going to be home cleaners? Is it going to be a water filter, an air filter? What do you already have? And then what more can you do? Just pick one thing. Then it's not overwhelming. If people think they have to clean out all their food pantries, throw everything away, I don't have people do that. I'm like, you can finish it up, but don't buy again the toxics.
That's a great idea. We would love to hear from you in the comments what you're going to give up for this month, and just try to detox, and maybe what you're going to do to sweat a little more or drink a little more, get that lemon water in the morning. So we'd love to hear those things, and subscribe to our channel. Keep listening, keep tuning in, keep letting us know in the feedback what questions you want Dr. Brumley to answer for you.